Same. For our second guest today, a renowned biologist with a PhD in biological oceanography and marine biochemistry specialty, Dr. Norma Patricia is the head of Climate Change Council for the Presidency of the Mexican Republic. Currently a researcher of the Interdisciplinary Center for Research and Studies on Environment and Development at the National Polytechnic Institute, Mexico. She's affiliated with several prestigious environmental organizations. She is a member of the Group of Ocean Experts in UNESCO IOC and also of the National Network for Interdisciplinary Research on Climate Change, among several other global councils. With around 60 scientific articles and 15 books on coastal zones, environmental deterioration, and climate change to her credit, Dr. Norma also co-authored the National Seas and Coastal Policy of Mexico. She has approximately 41 awards for her professional performance, including the Order of the Academic Palms awarded by the government of the French Republic in 2010. Thank you so much, Dr. Norma, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Good morning to everyone. Nice to meet you, and it's a pleasure to be here and share with all of you this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norma. And our final speaker and panelist of the day, Dr. Arico has worked as a tutor, a researcher, and a consultant with both governmental and non-governmental agencies for the past 12 years. He's also worked with other organizations and persons of diverse ethnic, social, economic, education, and cultural backgrounds. He has been involved in various training as a participant and has also delivered training to farmers, groups, and organizations with a high level of professionalism. These trainings have been carried out in different states of Nigeria and cooperative business school. He's also carried out monitoring and evaluation on various developmental programs, both within the public and the private sector. Thank you so much, Dr. Arico, for joining us today. Hi. Dr. Arico, I hope you're able to hear us. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Perfect. So we just begin right away with a quick panel discussion that we wanted to do with the three experts today. And just to ensure that all our experts are pinged to for the live, I will just do that. Yes, perfect. So I would like to begin with, since the topic today is focused on policies, and the one question that keeps coming up all the time is, what are some of the effective policies we can have? We know that all of you all have seen some great policy work within your countries and within your regions. So I was hoping to ask the first question, whether in your countries, do you have policies that are already in place for tackling climate change? And could you share how these policies have been tackling the issue of climate change within your region? And this is open to all the panelists, so maybe Afrin Ali can go first to share a little with us.
Okay, thank you. Prakash, did I get that correctly?
Yes, you can call me Priyanka.
Okay, Priyanka. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It's a laudable efforts put together by Future Savers, and I'm really delighted that more people are talking climate change, because there's so much we can do, and we need to start acting. We need to take action now. So in terms of policies in Nigeria, Nigeria happens to be an interesting country where they say one thing, but we don't see much actions, basically. For example, the national policy on climate change was actually put into law or enacted since 2013, October 2013. But if we had to delve in critically to see or measure the impact of that law, it is as though the government who put up the law is culpable, because laws that the law is supposed to guide issues like gas flaring, illegal bunkering down south in the Niger Delta, where young people who are unemployed just take on to, extracting this crude oil resources in an unfriendly and a not so friendly environmental manner. And there's nobody checkmating them. And it is reported that these government officials actually have these boys in the creeks doing this stuff. So when a government sets up a policy that has been on since 2013, that's over 7 years, one would have thought that at this time in 2021, maybe gas flaring, for example, would have been arrested in Nigeria, but that's not the situation. So we have the climate change policy. We also have the the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan that was approved in June of 2020. The gas flare plan, it was documented and approved in July of 2018. There is also the Nigerian Biofuel and Incentives Policy. That law was actually passed in July of 27. So that's about 20 years ago, you know. And then the Nigerian Vision 2020, passed in 2010, was supposed to checkmate all of these other policies that are just coming to limelight. But then this is where we are. We're still battling with air pollution, severe air pollution in Nigeria. So yes, there are policies, but are they active? Are they being enacted? Are they being enforced and implemented by the said government? The answer is no.
Thank you, Ashnali. And in fact, that's exactly why I think this panel is important, because we want to understand that while there are so many policies in place, why is it that we still don't see a progress in terms of our fight against climate change? And with that, I would also like to hear from Dr. Norma, who has worked so in detail with developing policies for Mexico, especially with regards to climate change. So over to you, Dr. Norma.
Thank you so much. Yeah, yes, in fact, Mexico has a very strong policies about climate change since at least 4 or 5 years ago. And this is a strong system. It's a national system of climate change where you have all the states from Mexico. We have 32 governors inside. We have the Climate Change Ecology Institution. We have the council where I belong. And we have a ministerial group working with this, of course, senators and deputies, and all the municipalities that in certain moment has a climate change commission in their place. It's a huge system. It's a very strong system, but the problem is that you are always under the expectations of the political will. It depends of the people who is leading the country, who is leading the Ministry of Environmental and Natural Resources, where they take the decisions and the council can stay for a long time as an advisor without anything in their hands, doing meetings together, but in reality, we don't advise as often as we should be for the country, because we have a lot of problems like everywhere in the world. Then the system is a good system. We have a law, of course, and we have a national program of climate change that is according with the law in every state. You know, we have in every state, we have a specific law of climate change, and we work together, but it's not enough. I think that we need to have a political will to really put in place a huge system like we have in all sense. And that is a problem, and that thing that we are facing, at least in the developing countries, this situation, and that is not so good. Thank you.
Completely agree, Dr. Norma, the importance of political will, and in fact, we will come to that area of discussion very soon. But I would like to first head towards Dr. Adiko to hear from him as to what are some of the policies he has seen in his region getting implemented and what has the effect of that been. Dr. Adiko, I hope we are audible to you. I guess Dr. Adiko is having some network issues, so we will, of course, have him join us back soon, but we can move on with the discussion while he gets back to us. So, Dr. Norma, exactly taking from the point you mentioned about the importance of political will. So the question I would have is, there are so many issues that, especially if you look at developing countries, they do face, where not necessarily that climate change or environment would take the front seat. So how do we ensure that leaders give equal or maybe even more priority to climate change when it especially comes to decision making? For instance, with the pandemic, of course, climate change had to take a backseat because there were so many other policies that need to be put in place, say, be it in terms of healthcare and everything else that followed. So in situations like this, how do we ensure that climate change doesn't take a back seat? And if decisions are being made, how do we ensure that the climate change has that front seat in the table while policies are being drafted?
Well, we have a lot of public policies also. We are helping to develop some public policies in many issues, or in environmental issues, or coastal issues, or marine issues. But the problem is that we can, as a scientist, we can build up a political, a public policy, but we cannot apply it. That is a big problem. We are not the ones who decide. We are not the decision makers. We can push a political public policy, but to put that in place is very difficult for us. Then you have some spaces with the deputies and the senators to show what you are doing, to tell them that why it's so very important, why you need to open public spaces, why people need to be there to discuss about what is good, what is not good, because the people is who is living in the areas, who is suffering the result of this climate change, this global warming. And normally they don't listen to us. You are like in front of a wall with all the information that you have in your hands, that is a scientific information that is very valid, that they need to take in account, and they don't do it. And then it's a difficult fight against the people, against the leaders, the political leaders, because you need to work and to work and to work and to talk and to say, and you lose a lot of time doing this. But I think that in certain way you need to do it, because if you stop it, you will never succeed anything. And then I think that decision making should be done by the leaders, yes, but with the logic basis, the scientific basis, with all the knowledge that we can give it to them. And yeah, it's so difficult. And in another hand, I think that in some country like in mine, people is sometimes they feel very comfortable, they don't want to fight, they don't want to say anything, they prefer to be at home doing things. But societies start to work now, society and the youth, they start to push, they start to raise their voices, because it's need, you need to do that. And we need to show adults that the country and the world is from everybody, is for everybody, for everything, and you need to work together, not only because you are okay with your commodities, because you are okay with your job, with your kids, with your family, that you don't have to fight in certain way. I think that we, all of us, we need to fight in the level that you can, but you need to do it. And then this is very important, because in that way, the political class will learn and will take actions together with us. At least I hope that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Norma. And the idea that you presented, where we all need to come together, I think I will direct that to the next question, but definitely. You worked a lot in amplifying the voices of the people, the youth. So do you feel that there is enough representation of the civic society and the youth in the policies that are being drafted, especially if you look at the policies in Nigeria that you were mentioning earlier? And if not, why do you think that there's a gap? And if there's a gap, how do you think we can have a more active participation of the youth and the civic society in the policies that get made? I think you're on mute, definitely. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for the question. The ma'am already said something major. We're not the decision makers. The people at the top are. But here's something that young people can do. A lot of us shy away. If you were conversant with the NSAS movement that started last year, September, and it got intense in October of 2020, where we had the face-off with the military attacking and, releasing live bullets on young people, youths actually, then I could say that young people in Nigeria are ready. 2, 3 years ago, they would always shy away because in my state, for example, it seemed like I was the only one doing so much, until I started. Of course, I do radio. I'm on social media, so I try to engage more young people from the primary school level to secondary to tertiary institutions. I focus on the young people because at the end of the day, you really do not know how to mend an old person who has lived, but we can focus on the young people. Now, the energy with which the young people in Nigeria have pushed the NSAS movement, of course, that's ending police brutality in Nigeria. If they would put in same energy to climate change, we can achieve a lot. And then again, there's a process, young people need to understand that before a law is enacted, it goes in phases. First reading, second reading, at the level of the House of Reps, or if it's at the State House of Assemblies, there are phases. Now, at some point, there's an open call for the public to come, review the sections of this particular law, the different points around it, make inputs, disagree where they need to disagree. But when that call is made, a lot of young people just relax. They think it's for their parents. They think it's for people in government. No, every step is important because if you don't go to these open hearings, you don't even know the content of the law being passed. So you don't even know how to tackle those in governance and demand for good governance. So first things first, we need to get participatory. We need to get more active. Young people need to start asking questions and demanding for good governance at all ramifications, not just at the federal level. We have local governments, we have state governments, and then we have the federal government. So CSOs will need to engage young people and encourage them, coach them, guide them on how to follow the process so that if, for example, we had a lot of young people at the opening, the open call for the climate policy that was enacted in 2013, many years ago. By now, we would know exactly what we're demanding. We would know the various points the government has achieved and where they're slacking and what we are demanding. But if you ask many young people today, they don't even understand what climate change is. So how can it even know what policies are guiding climate change?
Yeah.
So we need more awareness to educate more people and let the young people know that they have a right to demand for clean air, for example, for less impact with global warming and whatever causes climate change as well. Thank you.
I think that also very neatly ties up with the idea of building that level of literacy, especially among the young people, as to understand the processes that is involved in putting a policy in place. And it's not something that happens overnight, and it requires a lot of organized movement to push for what we want. And with that, before I open up the floor to questions from the people, I was wondering if Dr. Adiko has been able to find his connection back by any chance. Hello, Dr. Adiko. It's nice to see you. Thank you so much. We lost you there in between.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Dr. Adiko, of course, the first question that we were hoping to understand what are some of the policies that are actively being implemented in your region and community was something that we wanted to understand from you, and has it been having an impact in effectively tackling climate change?
Okay, the first question is on policies, climate change policies. Yes, just like Afrinelli said, we have a policy in Nigeria on climate change, and it was passed on in October 2013. The conclusion is that I don't think the elements of this policy have been implemented. Okay, and because we still have high growth, we still have emissions, we still have, especially in the oil and gas, Niger Delta, we have a lot of problems with climate there, and then it's affecting a lot of issues there. So, and that's that about that. Because the objective of the national policy is to mitigate measures that will promote low carbon as well as sustainable and high economic growth and strengthen national capacity to adapt to climate change, but it hasn't been effective. Okay, thank you.
And since you've worked so much with training a lot of young people, Dr. Adiko, I want to understand from you that can policies play a role in driving or facilitating climate education into schools and into the learning system? Can policies play a role in that? And if so, how do you think that can be done?
Yeah, that is a very good point for us in Nigeria if we can incorporate the issue of climate into our education, right from primary school, preschool, to primary, secondary school, to high school. I think we should begin to change our orientation, especially for young people, so that they begin to act in order to promote climate, or in order to protect the climate. Right? A 5-year-old child should at least have an education about climate, what is going on, what was it like 40 years ago, what's it like now, and what's going to be like in 50 years if we continue the way we are continuing. We are abusing a lot of things. We don't respect our environment, and then it's going to decline. The climate's going to be declining every now and then. So I think we should put it in our curriculum, even to the university. In those days, they used to teach us about geography, and in geography, we learn about other countries, we learn about climate and weather. But now we should go past that. We should learn how to protect the climates that we have found ourselves in. Then all our activities we should be conscious of all our activities, and we should let the young people, students, know that there's a problem if we are abusing our activities here, and then it's going to help us a lot. And I think the government we should also create awareness, even in our home. Try to begin from home. Tell your child, climate is changing, and these are the causes of climate change. And then this is how you can contribute to improving the climate in our system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adiko. As we move to the last around 10 minutes of the session, I was wondering if anybody from the participants had questions. Would love to open the floor to any questions that anybody wants. Please feel free to raise your hand. I did see that Shay had a question to ask in the chat. Shay, do you want to? I see Neda's hand raised. Neda, please go ahead. Neda, you're on mute.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone from Uganda. So my question goes to Adeko. Actually, he brought up a point that is very important about how we study about geography from other countries, I would just like to put him in a state of being Minister of Education for his country, and looking at the education system. Yeah, we do learn geography and learn the geography of other countries, right? So do you feel like it's bringing impact or making the youth in your country realize the effects of climate change within Africa? I don't know if you're from Africa or you're within Africa. Or do you feel like there's a way it can be upgraded? I am not saying that it shouldn't be done, like teaching us geography of other countries, climate in other countries, because we can relate. But then it ends in theory. I'm giving it from the Ugandan perspective. It ends in theory and yeah, close the book, walk out of class. So what step do you have ahead, or what idea would you have in mind as a Minister of Education for your country in order for us to put it into a more practical program?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. If I am to be the Minister of Education, I'm going to make sure we incorporate climate education in the curriculum right from nursery and primary school. As long as the child can understand that, oh, this is hot, this is too cold, this is too hot, then you should be able to educate that child that the cause of heat is what you are doing, or the cause of too much of cold or coldness is your activity. I think it's these are emerging issues. We have emerging issues in sciences, in social sciences, in education, and so we cannot remain static if we want to be on the same page in the global world, in the global perspective. We should be moving. And if I have my way and I become a minister, I will ensure that climate education is enforced, not even an option. It should be enforced because as a child should know that, okay, this is what is happening in my environment. These days we have a lot of heat wave. In Nigeria, the heat in Nigeria can be killing. If you don't have an air condition, you will just be, you could even faint. Every day we drink water. I drink water more than ever before now, unlike before. Even after the rain will just come, and before you know it, after 2 hours, you start feeling the heat again. So I think it's like the foundation of if you want to make a change in climate, in the awareness and in the consciousness of climate, in the consciousness of climate to our young people, we should start from when they are still in the preschool. But there are some people that don't even go to school. How about somebody who cannot afford to go to school, who is poor, basically, doesn't have enough livelihood to send his or her child to school? Then we should also go to the communities. We should start from the grassroots. Nigeria has a local government, has a state government, has a federal government. And I think if I want to do that, I will go, and even if you are not having formal education, there should be a campaign from the grassroots up to the top, so that even adults and an elderly person who is in his 70s and 80s who did not have privilege to go to school should have an idea of what we're talking about. Should not get lost in the issue of climate change, climate education. So we could do that for elderly people, who are in for young people, and then people that are out of school or who were not privileged to pass through the climate education that way I'm going to put up. They should also know that, okay, there's something going on in our climate. There's an issue here. There's glass flaring. There's high carbon emission, and then we should be conscious to take care of those things. And then before you know it, the child is in nursery school. By the time he goes through that to the university, he will live in the consciousness of climate change, and he'll be able to address his activities in order to not to jeopardize climate change. Thank you. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Meera and Dr. Adiko. There is one question by Dr. Richard in the chat. Dr. Richard, if you would want to unmute and ask that, that works well too, or if you would want to read it out. He's written that policy is the biggest driver of change. Who should implement policy? Isn't this a responsibility for all of us? So I open it to any of the panelists who would want to respond to that question.
Well, I think that the policy should be applied by the government, but we need to go to work together with them. That is very easy to answer, because if people is not working, the government, as long as they don't have the specialty or the tools to do it, they will not achieve it. Then for me, it's important to put in the front of the mirror that we need to work together with the government. We need to push the policies, and we need to act and to have actions. Otherwise, it's impossible to do something. In Mexico, for instance, the education, environmental and climate education, is compulsory at the level of primary school now, because the government is giving for free since a long time ago all the books for the school. Then they put inside all the information about environmental and climate issues. That is simple, from the high school until the university that belongs to the other system. But in reality, it's a matter of be together, not only in Mexico, to be together as a whole, as a world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norma. I think Dr. Richard has a follow-up question. Dr. Richard, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the wonderful moderation and to the great panelists. Yes, I fully agree. The reason I brought up this question is taking the context of Africa today, where many have actually sometimes described it has a symmetry for policies. That's true. I think when you listen across, every country have got policies, but the biggest challenge has been about implementation. And if we are not careful and only stay at talking policy, we will miss the reality, because it's not absence of policies, but it's absence of action. And now, what the question I wanted, pretty much is a comment, not necessarily a question, but I will appreciate to get the thoughts of the eminent panelist, which is that if you look at Africa, the continent, pretty much in most developing countries and even developed countries, we have the youthful population that have that ingenuity, that vibrancy, that passion to do things. But what we usually miss when policy is formulated and implementation plans are put, they are not actually always put at the center, because they're the biggest non-state constituency for implementation. That's one. The second is that the policy is made to be seen as if it is government to drive it. The role of government is to create an enabling environment. It is non-state actors to pick this up. So to what extent do you think from what you do or what you see, the discussion around climate policy starts to move away just talking climate, but to now more driving socio-economic opportunities and making youth at the center of it? That's one. The second is, don't you think that the blame game of government is actually weaponizing the very citizenry who are supposed to leverage the very tools which are policy to create their own opportunities out of that, rather than always blaming? And lastly, what do you think can be a bottom-up approach where we work with what we have, not always demanding what we don't have?
On to that.
I think it's open to anybody who would want to take up.
Okay.
To everybody.
First of all, I'd like to remind or just share one quote that I came up with in 2016 when I started my radio program on environment. A lot of persons have called me to change the quote. But here it is: environmental hazards are not just the government problem, but the people problem. I try to make people understand that without the people, there can be no government. And the government makes up a very minute percentage of the entire populace. So yes, from my end, I push the people. In fact, I pretend like there's no government. Because if we wait on the government of Africa, for example, nothing would be done. So that's why I came up with that quote. Now, to the initial question before Dr. Richard's input, who is to implement policies? Everyone. Like I said, there are stages, except that the citizenry, the electorate, they do not pay attention to their, in fact, it is a civic role that when the process of enacting a law is on, you pay attention to when the open call comes up. You need to participate. Otherwise, when it's eventually enacted, you have no right to complain. So people just sit there and wait on government. Probably we're waiting on government to start giving us 3 square meals a day, morning, afternoon, evening. We'll get to that point where election campaigns would start bordering around, oh, I'm going to feed you every day for 3 days. And that's, people are beginning to get lazy, not just the young people. We need to get beyond that. As for me, I coach young people to pretend like there's no government, because the government of the day is not sensitive to what we're talking about. So let's just pretend they are not there. I'm going to cite a scenario. When the former president of the US won his election, his first term election, he did not give heed or give an ear to the gay community. But when he wanted re-election, because the percentage of the people who were clamoring for gay marriage increased, he had to give in to them. So the people have the power to demand for what they want. The moment Nigerians, for example, in other African countries around the world demand for good governance in terms of clean air, in terms of less impact in global warming and climate change, the government would adjust. We are the ones to call them to order, not the other way around. So yes, I quite agree with Dr. Richard. We need to keep demanding and pushing until there's results. And any election coming up, you would see the aspirants trying to align with the voice of the people, because that's what they want. But when the people do not show the interest and they're lackadaisical and relaxed, well, the government of the day takes charge. Thank you.
Dr. Norma, would you want to add to that?
Well, I agree with Professor Richard that we are blaming all the time the government. That is true. We say that in Mexico, the government is guilty of everything. But the fact is that the population is not working together with them. And that is a problem. I think that if we work together, I cannot ask to do something that I'm not doing. How I can ask the government to work and to take actions if I don't be involved in the actions? That is so crazy. Then the government needs to do what they need to do, and on my side, the population, the society needs to work toward them. Why? Because only together we can build up everything. And for me, the best way to build up something is from bottom to top, that we did it in the past with the public policies in marine areas. The national public policy was built up by scientists from bottom to top because the society wanted and needed a public policy for the sea. Mexico is a country where you have the Atlantic and the Pacific oceans, one side and the other one, and we are giving the back to the sea because the sea is not important for Mexico. They don't take any actions. Then we decided to do it in that way, from the bottom to top. And of course that it works. After that, they put the words in a political way for the public policy and so. But finally, you are working for that. You are not blaming all the time the government, because the problem also is that you have every 3 or 6 years, you have a changing in the government. And then the ones who comes is a human reaction. Yeah, they did it wrong. They were not so good. I am the good one. And then I decided to build up again from zero. We start again in that way. It's not possible to have the really actions for a long time. Very, very strong actions. Then that is my opinion in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norma. Thank you, Affinity. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard. We're so happy you could join this panel with your question. And I think this panel has been so thought-provoking, and the idea of the power of people and their voices and the bottom-to-top approach that we just discussed, it's truly something that we'll take away with us and just inspires us to continue with what we're doing no matter what, and we're sure to create change. So once again, thank you so much to the wonderful panelists for joining us for this incredible conversation. And if anybody has questions, please do add it in the chat. I'm sure the panelists would be around for a bit, so they can surely see some of the questions and thoughts you may have in the chat. Once again, thank you, Richard, Dr. Adiko, who I think has dropped out of the call. But thank you so much, and we wish you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you for making our early webinar special.
Thank you so much. See you.
Thank you, Dr. Norma. Thank you, Affinity. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. With that, we will be moving on to session 3 of today. And just slightly going to stay on time, which I'm very excited. The panelists earlier were incredible with what they shared. So if you all have any thoughts, please do add it in the chat. They are around, and they will definitely keep their eye on the chat to respond to any questions you may have. And with that, I'm going to move on to session 3 for today. And if anybody has any thoughts, please do feel free to add it. Please do feel free to network in the chat as well. We have some very interesting participants who have joined us from across the globe here today. So yes, our next session aims to create an understanding of the role of science, technology, and innovation, and how it can play an important role in advancing climate education. For this session, we are joined by a young and a passionate youth advocate who stands as an inspiring example of someone who has found ways to effectively use technology as a means to drive climate action. So with that, I would like to invite Prachi Shivgaonkar.
Hi, Priyanka.
Hi.
Hi, I've learned
Prachi, if
so
you
much
can.
from the discussions today, and I'm very lucky. I feel very lucky to be here.
Thank you so much, Prachi. I am just not able to pin you. If you can, if your camera is switched on, that would be very helpful.
Yes, it is switched on.
Okay, perfect.
Can
I'll
you?
just pin you in a
Yes.
minute before I go
Right.
on to introduce you. Thank you so much, Prachi. Prachi Shivgankar is a media professional, communicator, and the founder of Cool the Globe, an app and a movement for climate action. Prachi has helped several sustainable initiatives and businesses craft a communication strategy. She has been mobilizing global citizens to fight climate change through technology, innovation, and grassroots action. Her journey started with a simple question: what can I do about climate change? From this was born Cool the Globe app to help citizens reduce their greenhouse gas emissions to a target. Prachi spent months covering stories of youth, farmers, waste picker communities, and citizen groups to understand the impact of climate change in day-to-day lives of people. She firmly believes that when ordinary citizens come together, miracles can happen. And I cannot agree more. So with that, Prachi, I think it's such a wonderful and an inspiring story just with that small bio. I think it's so incredible the way your journey has started. So with that, we would just like for you to firstly share a little bit about Cool the Globe app and what
Right.
is it and what does it do and how is it helping all of us tackle climate change? Please, the floor is yours.
Right. Right. So, as I say in the bio, it just started with a simple question that I asked myself: what can I do about climate change? I was in college at the time, and I went to my father and I asked him, what can I do? And we decided that as a family, we would reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions by 10% every year. As we started doing that, something strange started to happen, which was that climate action suddenly became fun and interesting and a happy process. And I had so much fun doing it that I also started noticing that a lot of people around me were also inspired to join in. A lot of people also, I noticed that a lot of people were also looking for ways to make a difference while also living their day-to-day lives. And many others like me were also wondering what they could do about this global problem. Then we started figuring out ways how we could share this journey with global citizens. And that's where the idea of Cool the Globe app came in. So we built this app to help citizens reduce their own greenhouse gas emissions to a target. So essentially what the app does is as soon as you come in, it gives you a target of saving monthly greenhouse gas emissions by doing simple changes and simple things in your life. And the default target is to save 10% of your country's per capita greenhouse gas emission. And you can obviously, change your target according to your needs. And as you go in, you see several options that you can take in your day-to-day life. Simple things like, for example, if a person wants to go to their office by cycle instead of a car, then they will find out how many greenhouse gas emissions they saved while doing that. And that saving will be added to their monthly quota. And they would find out how much of their target they've achieved. And I think the biggest feature of this is that on the homepage, you also see a global meter where you get to see the collective savings made by all app users combined. And that shows the power of collective actions. We made this app and we also made simple videos talking about the app. And we just shared it with people we knew. And the response was extremely overwhelming, where citizens just shared it with their groups, with their friends, with their family. And our cause reached millions of people that way. Now the app hosts citizens from over 55 countries and over 11,000 change makers. This journey has been uplifting and very empowering for me as well as a lot of other people around the world.
Thank you, Prachi. You are so young yourself, so it's incredible how much you've achieved in such a short duration. And since today's day webinar theme is climate education and climate literacy, and you're someone who is so deeply involved in science and technology, what role do you think science, technology, and innovation can play in driving climate education, be it in schools, universities, or on, say, a community level? What role do you think that it can play?
Right. So, I think the key challenge with climate education itself is, to be blunt, a lot of people find it boring. And then you add science to it, and a lot of other people might just start yawning. But I personally think that science and technology play a very powerful role in driving climate action. And I'll tell you why. It's because at its core, science and technology, it's not about textbook stuff. It's about people. Technology binds people together. To give my own example, I started Cool the Globe as absolutely a personal quest. And when I started wondering how I could share this quest with global citizens, that's when technology came to the rescue. And this simple tool, the simple technological tool, Cool the Globe app that we built, it bound people from over 55 countries on a common quest for climate action. And that is the power that technology possesses, because at its core, technology is about action. It's about finding solutions. It's about binding people together. But here I would also like to note that sometimes I've also had discussions with people who didn't want to take climate action, and one of the reasons people would often give is that they would rely on technology and say that sometime in the future we would come up with some innovation, we would come up with some solution, and we're relying on that. But technology is a foundation for individual actions. It will augment and it will scale up what we do at our levels. It's not a replacement for our action. Technology is powerful to scale up the foundation that we've already built. And that, I think, is the role of science and technology in climate education.
I think you so beautifully said it. And keeping that in mind, I think what you just added, I hope you are, I think that, yeah, Kachi's back. Okay, great. So adding to what you said, there's a lot of innovation and technology that's coming up these days when you look at trying to fight climate change. There are, of course, a lot of people on an individual level, organizational level, corporate, so many people trying to innovate and bring in new technology that can effectively make our environment a better place. But in the process, there are also a lot of technologies that are not sustainable in nature. So it's like you're trying to solve one problem, but you're creating another problem in return. Right. So how can we ensure that people keep that in mind, that as they develop science and technology, how can we spread that awareness that technology by itself needs to be sustainable in order for it to bring about that climate change, if we're positive climate change if we're looking for. So what are your thoughts on that?
Right. That's a very valid question. And because of that, my concern is also not about the existence of innovations and technologies, because there are many to do with climate change itself. But we must ask ourselves how many of those are coming from the grassroots. A technology is nothing without the people behind it. And an innovation is only meaningful as long as it's solving real problems faced by real people. An innovation is only meaningful as long as it's bound with the ground realities of communities. And that can only happen when solutions are coming not only from government sanctioned projects, not only from global institutions, not only from research labs, but it is sustainable and is meaningful when it's coming from people and when it's coming from communities that are being affected. uh, Innovation is meaningful when it's coming from us. So why do we not see many of such people-driven innovations? Because ordinary people often find it difficult to accumulate the resources. I think somebody's, yes.
Yeah, I have muted, please. Go ahead. Thank you.
So I think we don't, the reason we don't see a lot of these people driven innovations is because ordinary people find it difficult to find the resources to build upon the innovations, to scale them up, to find the right mentorship to grow it. And I think technology innovation will be sustainable when we facilitate an environment where ordinary people have the resources, the backing, the access to build upon their ideas and their innovations, and when they have the right mentorship to tell them that there's something that you can do about the problems faced by your community. So essentially it becomes sustainable when it comes from us.
Correct, absolutely. I completely agree. And before I open the floor for questions from the participants, I just had a doubt, and something that's always come in my mind. Of course, there are a lot of apps, there are a lot of digital platforms we see that are trying to push for climate action, but the reach of these sort of platforms and apps is very limited. And why do you think that's the case? And what are some ways in which we can ensure that these sort of digital apps and platforms have a large reach? In addition to that, there are many people who may not be able to access these kind of platforms, especially if you go into the rural sites or people who don't have access to technology in general. So how can we continue to ensure that even though we have this app in place, we're also driving such sort of people to take action? So in a way, an equitable access to it. How do we ensure that?
Right. So, an equitable access to a technology like this, it's a very complex issue. And I must be frank here and say that it is difficult to give equitable access to technology. Because it takes me back to an experience I had a few years back, where I was spending some time with study centers in and around slums in Pune. And I remember I sat on one of their computer classes, and I was very thrilled to know that they have computer classes. When I went in, I saw 30 to 40 students huddled up around a single computer, trying to get a glimpse of the screen. And it took me back to my own college, and the posh computer lab in my college with 30 to 40 work desks, but only 2, 3 children working in the lab. And that is the gap that we have currently. So we must acknowledge that it's difficult. Having said that, I continued to spend some more days in that study center, and I saw the students standing in lines so that they could get their turn for 5 minutes with the computer, and they would search their hobby and their favorite thing on Google when they did have that time. So even though it might be difficult to get a computer for every single one of those children, we must acknowledge that there is a power in what a single desktop can do in a classroom of 40. So equitable access to technology is difficult, but we can always try and give equitable access to knowledge and resources. So a single resource can do a lot as long as we are aware of the power of that resource. Um, uh, Coming to climate technology and climate change in particular, so this is something that I have also experienced a lot in Cool the Globe. So I would go and give lectures in schools and colleges. And in one of those lectures, we spoke about the impact of climate change and extreme weather events on roughly built slums, roughly built houses that are there in the slums, and how it impacts those communities. And after the lecture, I was surprised when one of the students came up to me and he said, "I live in a slum, and I'm going to go back home and I'm going to try and talk to my community and find a solution of what we can do about these things, because all of these things that we spoke about are what I have experienced firsthand." Um, so even though he did not have a smartphone of his own, he probably could not use Cool the Globe app on a daily basis. But we were able to give him access to that knowledge and to that resource. And in that entire week, that conversation I had with that student was the single most impactful gesture of climate action, which came from the grassroots. So I like to say here that a lot of people think that sustainability is for the rich and the privileged, and sustainability is something that you can do only if you have the resources to it. But real sustainability is not about expensive electric cars. It's not about it's not about something you can do only if you have the money to do it. Real sustainability is in simplicity. Sustainability creates opportunities, and real climate action actually improves your quality of life, and creates a lot of opportunities for you in other areas as well. So while I say that, we also must acknowledge that what should happen and what is happening, there's a gap between that. So when climate action becomes about genuinely improving people's lives, not just in the area of environment and climate action, but also in all other areas, that's when it would become accessible and equitable to everybody.
Thank you, Prachi. I think a very important point you made was equitable access to resource and knowledge, which is so important.
Right.
And I think that's the essence of what we're trying to discuss here today.
Yeah.
So as we move to the last 10 minutes of this session, I would like to open the floor to all the participants. If they have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or share it in the chat, and you can ask Prachi to respond. The Cool the Globe app's link has been put in the chat, so do feel free to check it out as well. And if anybody has any questions, the floor is open to all the participants. We will just wait for a minute to see if anybody has any questions.
Yes.
Dr. Richard, please, Dr. Richard, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prachi, for that beautiful articulation. Yes, science, technology linkage is very, very important. What I would just want to find out from you is, sometimes when we talk about technology, it is sometimes presented or manifested in a way that people think it's very complicated, heavy machinery, heavy tools. But when you look across every continent and country, there are simple things that people use each and every day, even farmers in villages using simple technologies to be able to ensure that they can have a bumper harvest, whether it is just inputs like fertilizers that have been produced by people using local machinery. So to what extent do you think that local technologies that do exist and have proven to be working can be promoted without necessarily always thinking complicated technology? That's one. The second is, what do you think is the role of young people in leveraging technology to drive climate action from a business angle without necessarily having to always sit and complain about government? And the last one is, if you were to talk to your government today, what will you tell your government? Just one thing you will tell your government to do that can make the life of young people who are developing technology to be better.
Right. Wow, all of those very beautiful questions, and very meaningful commentary in the questions itself. So the first question was about local technologies and the role they would play, right? And like you rightly said, technology is not something, not about heavy words, it's not about textbooks. Technology is something that comes very naturally to us as humans and as people. And technology evolves from field work and day-to-day work that we do. It evolves from practicality. And one beautiful example that we have seen is in Ladakh in India, where the farmers started facing difficulties due to climate change, where they would depend on water melting from the glaciers to do their farming. And because of climate change, the water that gets melted otherwise started to delay. So it didn't happen during their harvesting season. And there were a lot of issues that happened because of now. Now, the simple solution they came up with was to build ice stupa. So when the water would melt, they would structure it in the form of a stupa, so that the surface area of that ice would be less and the water would not melt early, and they would be able to use it for harvesting. And that comes from a brilliant insight, but it's also something that's developed by local farmers over there, and it's working beautifully. And the simple solution has made a great impact on the lives of people that would have otherwise been devastated due to climate change. So there are many more such local technologies, and that is what I meant when I say that solutions should come from the grassroots, because they're always grounded in real issues. The second question of yours was in the role of young people. And this again is something that I've experienced. I've known that even when we release Cool the Globe app, we would often find many adults coming to us to give suggestions, to give feedback, which was also very welcome. But the young people who came to us, they came to ask what they could do. And young people have today started asking, so a 9-year-old girl emailed me asking that she doesn't have a phone of her own, but she would still like to know what she could do in her day-to-day life for climate change. And she had understood a simple concept that many adults often don't, that actions matter a lot more than words. And with young people, it's difficult also because they would tell it to you to your face if they don't find climate action interesting. But they would also be the first ones to take action if they're convinced about it. Another area for hope is that sustainability and climate action is becoming cool these days. And that again is the power of it's soft power, where because something has become cool, now there is hope for it to happen at a much larger scale. And I think what was your third question again?
That if you were to ask your government to do just one thing, what would it be?
Right. Yes. So just one thing is difficult. And also because I've not spent a lot of time in thinking about what governments can do. All these years, my focus has only been on what we can do, because there are enough people worrying about what governments can do. Having said that, one thing that I would ask for them, because this is purely a policy level change, is for solar in India to be for example, in a lot of countries, your wind energy can be produced elsewhere, and that can be added to the common grid. So somebody living in a city can own a wind farm somewhere far away, and they can contribute to wind energy in their house from that. So in India, we have a very rich resource, which is the sun. So we need to now work on harnessing the solar energy. We need to work on our power, which is so naturally available to us, and we need to make it accessible so that people can own solar farms somewhere in the outskirts of the city. People in the city who can afford to do so, and their entire household can be made from solar. So right now, if you want to use solar panels can only exist on top of your buildings, on top of your households, which is not really sustainable at a larger scale. So be able to do that with solar would be a significant change here in India. But I think, as I always say, the real change would always come from people. And when people start taking actions, governments would have to listen.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Rashi. Thank you, Dr. Richard. Your questions are just absolutely very, in a sense, thought-provoking and just inspire the greatest answers and the greatest discussions. So thank you for keeping this conversation going and for joining us again with your amazing questions. And thank you so much, Prachi. You are so inspiring as a young leader, doing so much, having such a mass reach with your passion. Like Dr. Richard started in the beginning, passion is so important, and you are doing that with your work. And we wish you all the very best. We would, of course, want to be a part of the Cool the Globe movement, and at the same time, would love to be a part of your journey, the things you do, and we're always there to support you. So thank you so much, Prachi, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richard.
Thank you.
With that, we now move on to the next session for the day, for which I would like to hand over the floor to Shay from Future Savers Initiative. He would be moderating the next session for today. Shay, the first, yes.
All right, thank you, Priyanka. That's fantastic moderation from you. Thank you, everybody. The next session, which is the fourth session for today, that is tagged the role of advocacy in furthering climate education and action. We have three powerful panelists today. And this session is certainly going to be not just inspiring, but very relatable to every one of us. And we are actually very certain that our audience today is filled with passionate climate advocates who continue to amplify their voices for our planet. So our next panelists will be, talking so much about their works in towards climate advocacy, because actually they've taken it to the next step. So I will be introducing three of them. The first person is Sheya Adebote. He's a conscious environmentalist with a very strong passion, actually, for youth capacity development, sustained environmental growth, social entrepreneurship. Nigeria's youngest delegate to the United Nations Youth Nation General Assembly. He has a knack for in-depth, up-to-date, and factual research that guides his presentation, broadcast, and print, and indulges people toward consciousness. The second person is Samuel C. Okorie, a passionate
Shay, I think we have lost your...
Sorry for the itch. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. Yeah, I'm back.
Thank
So I'm on Samuel. Yeah, thank you. Samuel is a passionate researcher and is a grassroots and community development person. Samuel has professional recognition as a climate activist and environmentalist and gender and human rights instructor by the FIGHR, United Nations Affiliated Organization. Samuel has been a speaker in several global forums like World Sustainable Development Forum, Youth Leadership Network, Earth Odyssey, Vox Media, Pop Festival, Mock COP 26, Climate Change Dialogue, Warsaw Executive Meeting, and so on and so forth. He is a team leader and a partner at Echo City and Cheers. Team lead partner representing African and global campaign, Not Yet Recycled by JF Media. Samuel has received global recognition from over 40 countries. He is also a fellow of Federation of International Gender and Human Rights. Also, he is part of the Peace Land Nigeria and SDG Champion Nigeria 2020. And the last person, but not the least, is Meda Hope Malinga. He is an 18-year-old fantastic woman from Uganda, former student of Gayaza High School in Kampala, Uganda, now joining African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg, South Africa. She is the founder and general coordinator of Itaji Africa, which is a youth-oriented organization being driven by four major thematic areas: education, GBV, and child protection, food security, and nutrition. Climate change also included. The inspirational goal of the organization is UNSDG 4. She is a youth lover, impacting millions of lives directly and indirectly. She believes that the change we want to see start now with us. Our biggest vision is to have Itaji African influence the whole of Africa and the globe at large. I'm so happy to welcome the panelists, and I'm so inspired to read their profile. And I believe this also inspires so many young people listening to us today. So the discussion, actually, I will be asking some general questions. And then the first question to you guys: can you share your experience actually and journey with climate advocacy and how you have used it as a tool to address climate change in your community? I would like any of you to go first, but then Sheya Adebote can go first. And then Mida can go.
I was just going to pass the mic to Mida. Mida, if you don't mind, you can go first.
I don't.
Are you happy to go first?
Yeah, Mida, you should go first. She is trying to pass the mic to you.
Hello everyone, good afternoon to you all. I'm Alina Midaho. I'm a student, founder and general coordinator of Study Africa. Adventure realization, learning. Sorry. Okay. Um, to set my hands on what kind of roadmap needed to address the issue of climate change and its effects to the community. They range from workshops, conferences where I have engaged with my peers interested and already engaged in taking climate action, and the elders who have set the journey and targeted the path for a remarkable time frame. I attended Model United Nations conferences under the Environmental Committee for 3 years as a delegate to various countries, which include Turkey, Bangladesh, El Salvador, and Ukraine, plastics, environmental migration, combating illegal trade, wildlife trade, and addressing the issue of air pollution. I served as a coordinator for events under the School Water and Sanitation Club at Gaza High School from 2016 to 2019. During my term of service, we partnered up with Environment Club and the 8 houses in the institution to host a 7 week anti-litter campaign, which involved training masses on responsible disposal of biodegradable and non-biodegradable materials to reduce the rate of environmental pollution and soil degradation, which are an outcome of poor waste management. We also made the students and the whole school realize civilization brought out with responsible handling of waste materials. I took responsibility as the student coordinator for Gaza High School to organize outside programs to clean the water bodies within the community while engaging community to outcome of consuming contaminated water. This project was done under the Global Water Crisis class in 2017, which Gaza High School took part. I was lucky to be among the 4 Ugandan youth delegates to attend the conference in Morocco in 2019. It was where I got to realize the importance of quality education as a key influence to sustainable change in Africa. On the 14th of December 2019, we had an anti-litter campaign in Kapchora Municipal Council, where we sorted out the rubbish and in the Duchess area of the municipality and cleaned the market area as well. I attended the Pop Movement Youth-led Climate Action Advocacy Workshop with the theme of to help youth develop ocean-oriented solutions, which happened on the Saturdays of 26th, 3rd, and 10th and 17th of October 2020. The workshop enabled us to draw a plan on eliminating plastics and addressing the issue of environmental migration, which we upgraded into a project that I'm currently learning and working upon. On the other hand, we're able to share the ideology on eliminating plastics with Kampala Capital City Authority, which was taken up as a project in the institutions that we had connections with. Also was able to take part in the festival hosted by Protect Our Planet that was able to make me learn so many other areas as sensitive topics we handled. Lately, I'm scaling up a project tackling the effects of climate change on food security and nutrition in vulnerable communities. In this case, I'm focusing in Bududa district, which turns out a vulnerable community due to several landslides. Yes, I think I've summarized.
Thank you. Yeah, you did great. Thank you. That's a very fantastic experience, and that involves a lot of community work and projects that you have actually involved yourself even at a very young age, and that, I believe, should serve as a kind of inspiration for so many young people that regardless of your community, regardless of where you are, even in your school, in your institution, you can do a lot, to get yourself involved in your community. And I believe that service to humanity leads to greatness. So that's the most important thing here that you have shared with us. So Sheyi, I would like you to go next.
Yes, totally my pleasure. Good afternoon from here in Abuja, Nigeria. And happy Earth Day to everyone. Really exciting to be a part of this conversation. And I should say many thanks to you, Shay, and the Future Savers team, as well as every other partner that has made this possible. I also understand Okorie will be joining this meeting, and it will be really exciting to hear from him. He's someone I respect, and his work around climate advocacy here in Nigeria. So yes, I mean, just to set a background, you did read my profile, which I'm very honored for. Sounds pretty intimidating to me myself. But the point I just wanted to stress is that, I mean, advocacy works. If there's anything we should take away from this conversation, it's simply come to realize we sometimes do not know how powerful it is. The little advocacy we devote ourselves to doing, and if there's anything we should be reassured of more than ever before is the fact that advocacy works. I listened when Afro Nelly was speaking earlier, and also to some contributions from Richard Monand and the rest of the team. And I understood that, I mean, it's very inspiring to hear them share their stories. And here also, there's been a lot we've been doing on the ground. I do hope that, as the conversation goes on, I'll be able to share some of the practical advocacy work we've been doing and how it's been a very useful tool to advance climate change in Nigeria and by extension on the African continent. But that's just an introduction from me. And I would also love to hear from other people. Thank you, Shay. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Shay. It's really great. I know most of your work, and I respect that you like to speak the truth, especially when you talk on social media. I know how difficult it is for young people nowadays to speak against the government or to scrutinize the government for what they are not doing or their nonchalant attitude or behavior towards climate advocacy or climate change. But I believe that every advocacy, no matter how small it is, it works, and then we cannot be discouraged by the inactivity of the government as expected. So that being said, I want to hand over to Samuel. Samuel, your turn.
Yeah. Okay. Good day, everyone. Thank you. Hope you can all hear me. Hope you can all hear me. Am I clear? Okay. So thank you very much, everyone. This is awesome. So being here, and then also Shay, it's really awesome seeing you as well, because I know you are really an inspiring and amazing human being as well that I also have learned many things from. Basically seeing your tweets alone and most of the things you've done, they are really inspiring. And then, well, my work in the climate field has not really been ineffective, but it has been super effective because there has been a whole lot of progress and there has been a whole lot of work done. And it's also awesome to know that we as Nigerians, we can be able to put Nigeria in a global map. We can be able to put Nigeria out there to tell the world that we are doing something. So how did my work start in the field of climate change? It started in, I think, in 2016, 17, whereby I was told to organize a project, a campaign to talk about clean and green environment. So I had to mobilize people that came out, and first of all, they promised that they are going to come out, but getting to the D-Day, nobody turned out. So I was left alone to carry out the whole process. And you know how frustrating it is, whereby you have to go on the streets to tell people, promote green and clean environment, and nobody is even like talking to you. Some people are even scared. So when I did that stuff, it was really motivating.
Yes.
And I had people that pledged to keep Can you
Lost you
hear
for a
me?
moment, Samuel, but I think you're back.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me.
Samuel, you can you can keep talking now. Yeah, I think.
Okay, so it's really awesome to know that people can actually sign up as green advocates. So my work from there has been really progressive, where we got people to advocate for climate action and also advocate for clean and green environments. We've done a whole lot of work at grassroots level, telling people about the essence of sustainable environmental practices. And at the moment, there is a project I'm carrying out with the POP movement as POP Nigeria Initiative, where we want to use climate education as an adaptive to tackle climate change impacts. And at the moment, there is even a program that we are carrying out at the moment. I think this would be awesome for everyone to see as well. The passion doesn't just stop from where we are, but the passion goes beyond our own physical environment to tell the story of what we're actually doing. You can see this is a live event we're also doing today. You can see everybody. This is also to tell to people about climate change. And also, we have a whole lot of stream activities involved. Awesome. And as at last week, I was with the Minister of Environment, Federal Republic of Nigeria, to talk about the project. And earlier this week, I was with the VC of University of Calabar as well to discuss about this project. I'm currently in Calabar. We are carrying out a lot of projects in regards to promoting sustainable environmental practice and also climate education. So it's really been an awesome experience. And I think I'll stop here for now, then further engagement with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Samuel. You're actually doing a great work with your team. It's obvious, and what you're doing with the pop, with the pop team. It's fantastic. Trying to move from one state to the other, trying to broker some environmental policy deals, which I think it's a great one. Why some people are on the street trying to clamor for climate change policies. Some people should also be in the offices and trying to broker this deal, trying to lobby the government. I think it's part of the whole process. At the same time, not every one of us can have access to the government, for example, like what what you had last week. So it's really a wonderful thing you're doing, and I want to say thank you to you as well. So moving forward, we know that I would say starting our organization, the objective right from the beginning has always been climate education, because we believe that to deliver climate justice, climate education is actually pivotal. Like Afronali said the other time, there are a lot of young people in Africa or in Nigeria, for example, who do not actually understand what climate change is all about. They can feel it. They see changes, they complain about it, but they do not know anything about it. But now I think the consciousness is being raised in different parastatals, in different states, in different local governments. And then you're seeing changes, you're seeing young people, having interest, asking questions, what is happening. A lot of young people are ready to volunteer and so on and so forth. And I think that is the power of climate education. Many people feel you just have to always do things, but I think sensitizing people, reorientating them, it's key, to delivering climate justice and even climate action. So the next question would be for me that, what role does climate education play in shaping young climate advocates? What role do you think climate education plays in shaping young climate advocates? Over to you, Mida.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful question. One thing I must say is that personally, I do believe education is what made me realize the need for climate action. And it all comes down to the institution that I enrolled into. The institutions have a bigger role to play, but then at personal level as well, you need to realize that you're a member of community, and these things that are affecting community are affecting me as an individual as well. So the thing is, with the education, we shall be able to relate the situations. Earlier on, I made a comment. Actually, I asked a question to one of the panelists, and my reason for asking him that question was to get his point of view as a Minister of Education for the country, because I really do believe that our education system would have been better than what it is if only we stood up and made the private institutions especially realize this. And at the end of it all, the private institutions at some point have influence in public institutions. So one thing is that with the education system, for example, through the geography as you talked earlier on, we are able to learn about the climate change or climate of other countries, Rhineland, China, and other so many areas. Then you try to relate it to Uganda. What I can say is that with education, we are able to sit down and it stimulates innovation. For example, I must say that with the project that I'm currently running on building community resilience to the effects of climate change, it's because I realized that, okay, we've sat down in class and I've learned the effects of climate change. Climate change is something that is happening in the country. How did we realize that? It's by the theory we obtained from class. Now, the institution, I'm lucky to be in an institution or work club that, can I say, stimulates or has programs that make you realize your role play as an environmental advocate. So we don't end on the theory, but come out to make the practical work done. So one thing I must say is that while we are sitting, we are able to apply the theoretical knowledge obtained from class into a practical format. Because yes, now you realize the effects of climate change and you add up content. I must say, yeah, that's where the innovation comes in. So, okay, this when you look around and you're like, for example, Uganda is affected by landslides. So, and there are solutions that could, try to address the current problem. Yeah, so you now are able to relate and come up with something that is going to address the current situation. And also probably you are able to meet the socio-economic problems in society. So one thing I must say is, okay, our education system is more of I'm speaking it from Uganda's experience. Youth are energetic, but if you look at the employment rates, there are jobs looking at us, but people do not realize that the jobs exist because we've learned from class about the climate of Uganda. We know about the climate change, but now people are looking at it as a problem other than what Dr. Richard said earlier on, an opportunity for you to come and outshine because it ends as theory. We are not given a platform to, come up and share ideas. It's only a few youth who get the opportunity to come up and get these ideas. So I really do feel, here we can't blame the government, as Dr. Richard said earlier on. It's up to each and every one of us to go and educate the people, make them realize the problems that we are facing at community level, climate change, and widen up their knowledge on what exactly they can do to address these problems. People can come up with brilliant ideas. For example, the youth who are doing charcoal briquettes, they're doing it as an entrepreneurship project, but they do not relate it to environmental beneficiaries. So at the end of it all, it comes down to the system and also individual awakening. And in order for us to make it spread all over, it's me realizing my voice and sharing out with others. so that I'm able to spread the same word to many more. And at the end of it all, while we speak of education, I got educated from Gaza. That knowledge from Gaza is able to spread out to someone who is about 300 kilometers away from me through advocacy. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't take too long.
Okay, thank you, Mida. That's really great. We need to be very fast because the session is almost going to end. And then I'm going to allow Dr. Richard and any other person who will be having one or two questions to ask the panelists. So I would like to go straight to the second question, and that's Shei's to respond. My question is, why do you think advocacy is relevant to tackling climate change? You said something when you started that it works, yeah, but then why do you think it's relevant? Why do you think it's actually relevant in tackling climate change? Shei.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for that question. I mean, my response would be pretty simple. The whole conversation around climate change is, I mean, it's like a long chain, if you want to say it that way. It's a long chain. So there are people who will have to be in government. There will be people who will work on policies. There are people who will maybe review international agreements and all that. And there's also that end on advocacy. So it's like a chain, it's like a very long chain. And we can choose what end of the chain we want to, hold and work with. So if we look at it, it's not about the people in government being more relevant, being more powerful than those who advocate or those who have the knowledge and call people to action or call the government to action. It's about just, individuals finding different ends of the rope and holding on to it. Now, advocacy is a very powerful tool. We can say this for climate change, for environmental issues, but we can also say it for every other, other areas of life. Look at in Nigeria, there was recently the End SARS protest. It was basically advocacy. In the US, there was the Black Lives Matter. It was basically advocacy. And so for climate change, it's not an exception that advocacy works. It's about understanding what context, who are the people we're talking to, how can we get other people on the ground. Richard Monarch talked a lot about, bottom-up approach. That's what advocacy is about. It's not about, one or two persons reaching the powerful people up there. It's about getting 1,000 or 2,000 people on the ground and saying, you know what, together let us raise our voice about these issues. Together let us work towards addressing these issues. That's basically how advocacy works. And if you look at it that way, you would see that it is really relevant, and on the long run, it indeed works.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think the point is that every one of us has a role to play. Those in government, those who lobby, those who are on the street, those who can call for action. We all have a role to play by holding that chain. And climate change advocacy is more than just talking about the change itself, but also few actions, few influence that we can have on our leaders. And I think I got a point. That's very fantastic. And the last question will be going to Sam. And briefly, I would like Sam to answer. What more would you wish to see in the area of climate advocacy in order to achieve success? We have been talking about different approaches, but then do you have something unique, or do you think there is something more that can be done, or that you would like to see in young people, in the government, or in different areas? You talk to the government, you try to meet the government. What more do you wish to see in that area of advocacy in order to achieve success? That's
okay. So for me, what role I think we need to see in order to achieve success is, first of all, we have to erase the mentality that we cannot meet these people. That is number one. And secondly, we have to own up to our responsibility, like the word man up. A philosopher would say, man know thyself. So for us to get everything right, we have to know the power we have as youth to get these things done. Because if we don't know the power we have as a youth, we will always be scared of meeting these people. Let me say, for instance, we wanted to approach the Ministry of Environment, Federal Ministry of Environment. I remember what many people say. They were like, hey, Sam, do you know how many years it has taken us to get to the ministry and begin to work? And some told me, hey, Sam, you are a small guy, you cannot get this done.
Like I had a whole lot of discouragement, but that didn't stop me from going for what I wanted. So what I just want to see are passionate youth that are crazy to do something passionate for not just the environment, for not just their survival, but for the protection of our planet. And until we come to that consciousness that we can do this ourselves, and we don't really need anybody to be more like a whistleblower for us, the more important it is for us to get the work done. Okay, so that is all we have to do. Let's focus more, because this in 21st century we have a lot of distraction coming in from left, right, center, of knowing the right persons to meet, knowing the right people to go to, and all that. Yes, those distractions are going to come, because I too for person also had those distractions too. I too for person was also shy and all that, but it all takes a while for us to just realize that we cannot be stuck in this mentality that if we meet these people, they will turn us down. As we speak now, we have gotten a support letter from the Federal Ministry of Environment, giving us access to every minister, to every commissioner in Nigeria to access them. So it means in any state we enter, we have easy access to the Commissioner of Environment in that state to work with them. And apart from that, we are able to meet with the VC of University of Calabar, the Vice Chancellor of University of Calabar, who is more like presiding over the university. And we have an endorsement letter from them that in any activity we are carrying out in this institution, they will be supporting us full time. And we want to institutionalize this by making sure that every sector in Nigeria is conscious of climate change, and also they adopt climate education as one of the subjects that students can be able to offer in their institutions. And yes, we are working towards that. By God's grace, we've gotten contact of someone that is close to close to a speaker in House of Representatives. So our pressing need now is submitting our climate education bill to them, and also submitting a template or a framework that incorporates all we want to see students do in sustainable environmental practices, and also all want to see students learn in climate education. So I know there's a whole lot of things that we're going to achieve together as youth, but we have to come together to have a striking force, and also to have one voice to do that. It's not all about organizing projects and events, but it's all about making it sustainable. And for it to be sustainable, we have to do the right thing, and not basically doing it anyhow we want to do it. Thank you very much.
Well, that's interesting. I think running this segment up before I will allow Dr. Richard to ask his question briefly, is that we Africans, to be honest, it's not our fault. We've been the fear of the government, the fear of people up there, has been something that has been created in our mind right from childhood. That you cannot talk to your elders, you cannot ask questions. The elders cannot be wrong, and that translates to everything that is happening now. We cannot even. I remember when I was in school, I dare not even knock the door of my headmaster. So I cannot knock to ask questions because we are scared, right? So I think that the most important thing is to remove the fear, and then young people should go to those Ministry of Environment, those commissioners, knock their doors, ask them questions. I know sometimes they don't honor these letters, but then we can devise different approaches by going in group. When they see number of young people with less smiling faces, I believe they are going to listen to us. I think that's an approach that we can use. So, Dr. Richard, I would like you to ask a question, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Say, and thanks to the eminent panelists. I think they did an amazing job. I think most of the answers to what I wanted to ask have already been provided, but thank you. Let me start with Meda. Thank you very much for what you are doing. I think that's quite very inspirational. What I want to hear from you is the great work you are doing with the community. I just want, how do you engage them to be part of the ownership? Because what we know, building on what Said have said, most of the time when we hear project, we think money. In the continent, forgetting to know that sometimes ideas and engaging the community to do something, also playing their part, actually results into a project, even when you don't even have money. So how do you really engage them so that they become owners of this? To say, Adebote, yes, it's always a pleasure to hear you speak, and thanks for buttressing on the advocacy. You're doing a good job. But what I just wanted to ask to you is, we know that advocacy is the biggest tool. It will always be. But I would rather say advocacy that is contextualized, which you are really doing that very excellently, using podcasts and doing everything. But I just want to ask you, given the context, building on what I've already said, we sometimes love to complain. And the dimension you are bringing is, yes, let's talk solutions, which is really great. And it's not just talking to governments, but it's talking to non-state actors, citizenry, and individual actors as well. So how do you think we can inspire people to see themselves as the solutions they will need, not always waiting for an elusive solution to come from elsewhere? Through advocacy, leveraging advocacy to make people, especially young people, to see themselves as the solutions. Then lastly, to Samuel, thank you for the good work you are doing. You said something in your opening remarks. It's like people didn't believe you. But what I wanted to say is, how do you ensure that you work with a willing? Because we have this attitude in the continent that if you don't bring money upfront, you are not useful. Usefulness is equated to material. So how do you win over these people? And one last question to every one of you. You know, yes, climate change is an environmental issue, but the solutions will not come from environment. To what extent are you engaging other actors that are not in the environment space? Thank
you. So can I go first?
Ladies before gentlemen.
Yeah, sure. Okay, fine. Ladies first, right?
Okay. Meda, please.
Hey. Okay, so about gaining interest from the community in taking part in these projects, I must say it's not about money. Now that's where we've all gone wrong. Bringing change is not all about money. I got to realize it's about 3 T's, which is time, treasure, and talent. Actually, most youth or young people who see you engaging in community development look at it as a money-driven project. Okay, you have the money, that's why you are causing change. But now I've taken it as an initiative. I actually do youth empowerment, whereby I go down to community level and make youth realize their role play towards sustainable development. Here you are able to relate with people and take away that mindset of, I need the money in order for me to bring change. You might have the voice. Your voice is what will cause change. Some of them say change is only for the activists, climate activists, human rights activists. We don't realize that with whatever career we take, as long as you are part of a developing country or a citizen of a developing country, your career has a role play towards sustainable development. So it's all about innovation. Realize why I took up this career, what is lacking in my community, and that's where I need to act upon. So you just need, it's more of like conversation. And because I've sort of like had a wide range of conversation with my peers, it's really easy for me to go down to community and, you know, persuade them and now reach out to governments, the local councils, in order for us to mobilize at grassroots level to see the project a success. Yes, and then I didn't get the last question you asked to all of us.
Yes, the last question was that given that climate change is an environmental issue, but the solution is not going to come from the docket of the environment. That's a fact. It will come from energy, it will come from ICT, it will come. So how are you engaging across the board those people? Just a quick one.
I must say, it all comes back to the fixed mindset. When you meet up with people, someone will tell you, because I want to become a doctor, I must not engage with, you know, climate-related content. And you're like, okay, look through your career and try to realize that you are part of this community. You might be a doctor, but you can use your voice. You know, here you bring in talent, leave the career aside. You might be a doctor with the voice, so you bring in your voice. So at the end of it all, I think we need to just trigger the mindset of someone. Take away that vibe of, because I'm an ICT specialist, I'm going to, you know, focus on Facebook, Word documents and all, but make them realize that there can be online advocacies as well. and also make best use of IT for online communications. I must say, make people realize their role play in climate action via IT. Basically, it's just working towards the mindset of people. So you sit down and make, listen to everyone. It's just a mindset thing, I must say. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Samuel, you want to go next? Mida, thank you very much. Samuel, if you want to go next, that's fine.
Yes, so I would want to go next.
I'll just intervene for 1 second. I request everyone to just keep time in mind slightly, if we can conclude the session in another 5 minutes, if that's all right. Thank you so much. Please go ahead, Samuel.
Okay, so thank you. And then I want to say that, first of all, as youth, we don't work in isolation. And then as youth, we are not neglecting the fact that we all have our weakness and some impediment that may come up. But one thing is that it's much more appreciated as youth if we can be able to see the usefulness of what we are doing now that will reflect our tomorrow. Okay, if we can have that big picture, it will save us a whole lot of stress, and also it will save us a whole lot of time of doing the wrong thing at the right time. Let me take, for instance, we are talking about climate advocacy, and people are clamoring on just meeting people on the streets to talk about climate advocacy, while other people are clamoring on getting policies implemented that will tackle climate change. And another set of people are just interested in hanging out with government just to talk about climate change. But if we are all doing these things without having the big picture of the usefulness of it, that means we have been wasting our time all this while. So basically, you can see somebody telling you about climate change, but if you ask them what's the usefulness of you advocating for this thing, they don't even have anything to talk about. Okay? So first of all is we realizing the usefulness. Now, what is the usefulness? Is that if we don't do it now, nobody will do it for us. That's number one. And secondly, even though people will do it for us, they will not do it better than how we would have done it. That is the second point. And apart from that, if we recognize necessary stakeholders starting from the grassroots, it will help us as well to harness a whole lot of resources from the grassroots. I, for person, I'm one of the people that believe in grassroots development and grassroots action. I'll just give this brief story, very brief, then I'm done. I gave an analogy of the NSAS protest that happened in Nigeria. And I said, when the NSAS protest began in Nigeria, there was what we see as the revolution coming up. But when the NSAS protest was distorted, it was not the people from the top that distorted the protest. What happened? They went to people at the grassroots and convinced them to distort the protest. Now you see the power of grassroots. If we start from grassroots to conscientize these people, they cannot be easily bought off. They will realize the usefulness, and they will see how useful they are too, to also secure what is important for them. So the question falls back to every one of us: what have we been doing at the grassroots? So that in case tomorrow these people will not easily sell out their conscience of not preserving the environment, because what the government is doing now is they are going back to the grassroots and making people sell out their lands. So if people sell out their lands, they start deforestation, they start bush burning, they start all manner of things, and we start losing our lands. So what are we doing at the grassroots in this matter? Thank you.
Last question, please.
Many thanks indeed. And Dr. Richard, it's really good to see you. Very pleased to see you again. Very good.
Likewise.
Of the shirt too, very African. So, I mean, my response to your comments are pretty simple. If we do not share our stories well enough, we will not know to what extent we can inspire other people. And you understand what I mean. That's why I really appreciate the work you do in telling, your own story coming from Cameroon to, having to grow. It's really inspiring, but you never can tell how many people you could inspire if you did not start by telling those stories. So the whole context of advocacy is about localizing the issues. What are the things happening in this little community where I stay? I don't have to be in Lagos, in Abuja, in the big cities. It could be a very small community in some parts of Cameroon, and then telling the story of, hey, see what is happening here, see what we are doing to address these issues. And that could be a spark that someone else needs. So I strongly believe that it's about telling the stories of our local communities, no matter how uninteresting we think they are. It's about telling that story and being consistent with that storytelling. And then I totally agree with you that the solutions to address environmental problems will not come from environment. If you look at the old sectors, building, technology, transportation, I mean, those are the sectors that we should focus on if we really want to address the impact on the environmental sector. And it's also the financial aspect. So I really do think it's as important. I mean, it's as simple as, taking a step out of shouting climate change and environmental advocacy to looking at what these people are doing and then seeing how we can integrate the environmental component to what they are doing. And that way, I really do think that we can have like an inclusive way of addressing the issues. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Shay. Priyanka, I would like you to take the stage now.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you, Dr. Richard, Shay, Meda, and Samuel. This session definitely deserved a lot more time, and I really wish we could give it because the conversation was just so incredible. I would like to thank Dr. Richard for his intervention once again. It's just incredible. And a big shout out and a big thank you to Meda, Sam, and Shay for all that they're doing. They're true leaders that are inspiring change in their communities, and not just in their communities, but globally as well. So thank you so much for all that you do, and we would love for you to keep sharing your journey with us, and we would love to hear and learn more from you going forward. So thank you so much once again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
So,
thank you very
Billy,
much.
Billy, I'll just give a short introduction before you start.
Thank you very much.
So we move on to the last session for today, which I think is such an important session because we have been, of course, having a lot of discussion today, but here's a chance for us to see some action that is being taken by some youth leaders who are doing such great work in their communities. And with that, I would just, before I start, I would like to request all the presenters who are presenting their project to stay within the time limit of 10 minutes. And at the 9th minute, I will, of course, give out a signal so that we stay within time and we have the other participants and other speakers also present their project. So with that, I would like to introduce the first presenter for today, which is Billy. Billy has over 6 years of experience volunteering in the humanitarian field, empowering and assisting the underprivileged and youth through community projects and skill building initiatives. Currently, he acts as the Director of Programs and the Chief in charge of the Translation Cell of the Cameroon Debate Association. Having a vision to pave the way for others, he's a project assistant of the project for the empowerment of the internally displaced persons in Chang under the French Embassy in Cameroon, and a volunteer at the International Network for the Promotion of Speech Art in Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific, where he has empowered over 500 youth on speech art and leadership. He's currently the founder and acting president of BioDebate. With that, Billy, I hand over the floor to you for your project presentation.
Thank you, Pascas. Actually, I will first of all start by thanking all my fellow leaders on board, because actually when I came online, I listened to them. They were actually exchanging on a valuable and interesting and insightful topic concerning climate change. And I wish to say, actually, it was really interesting having all their insightful presentation. Now, coming back to my presentation, which has to do with Cameroon and youths engaged in climate change initiative, I wish to say, as the moderator just said, I am Tage Willy, climate advocate, and actually, I'll just cite some of the projects that we have been conducting back here in Cameroon, so much that we should be in line, or so much as she can give you further updates if actually you want some statistics further. Now, we'll start with the empowerment of the displaced population. When actually the crisis started in Cameroon, actually we pick up some initiatives so as to see that at the end of the day we actually integrate, we help the displaced that were actually English speaking integrate in the west region of Cameroon. And one of the initiatives was actually to build their skills on entrepreneurial on to build their skills on entrepreneurs. After training them on, after organizing capacity building workshops on entrepreneurships, and actually helping them to mount up projects that actually we look for fundings with external and national partners, because we do not only go at the international level, we equally look at the regional and national level, how we could equally fund the project that actually we train them in such a way that they came up with. And now, in the area of environment, we came up with a farming project on a 5 hectares of land, because we realized that actually the people were there, they were not doing anything, and they were kind of dizzy. So we actually integrated them in a project of 5 hectares of land where they had to actually work on beans and corn and granite. It was beans, corn, and granite on the same 5 hectares of land. And in our program as a director of program, we used to conduct cleanup campaigns in town, that is in the community, that is in our municipality. We conduct cleanup campaigns. We go out to actually pick out the dirt, plastic, paper, all the like with youth leaders. We gather youth leaders. We go out, we pick up dirt, and we actually put it into the dustbin. And still in the same sense, we are looking forward organizing a debate and public speaking context that will be to tackle environmental challenges. When I say environmental challenges, is actually, for instance, to actually debate on the pollution of oceans, because in Cameroon we have a coastal region, which is the west region of the southwest region of Cameroon, and specifically Limbe. And at that particular point, people actually they use so many plastic papers, and when you go alongside the coast, you find plastics and all the like. So it's not only there, even in the west region as in the center, people use plastics and they dump them without caring. So we look forward organizing a debate that actually will trigger the youth to actually pick up sensitive initiative, helping the government to actually clean these stuffs. So why are we passing through the youth? Because we believe if youth are actually drilled on climate change, drilled on equal the pollution of plastics in our milieu, that is the influence, the negative impacts of the pollution of plastic, the negative impacts of the use of the careless use of plastics in our communities. They will go further to sensitize their parents at home. You know, when you train a youth in school, the immediate impact is that the youth, when he gets at home, he actually share the knowledge learned with the parents. And obviously, when they will share with their parents, you go a long way to help the government sensitize better the population. We go a long way to sensitize a wider part of the population, and our environment will be clean because people will be mindful of the negative impacts of the careless use of plastic, and equally climate change. And when we talk about climate change, we can equally enter into the deforestation and all the like. That will be in line with the public speaking and debate competition that we are going to organize. And we equally have a sensitization that we do online concerning climate change. When I say online, I talk about WhatsApp groups. For example, we have WhatsApp groups where we actually sensitize people, especially at this particular moment where it's difficult for us to go out. We use our platforms, our various platforms, to do our sensitizations. And in the same light, we have, for example, in the association Bao Debate, where I am the acting president, the one of our members, Berenice Momo, who is currently following a training with the UN. Among the 10 young leaders that have been selected at the national level, we have one person representing the association, which is who is Momo Berenice, and she's currently following the training with UN on climate change. And I believe that after that valuable training, she will come back with impacting initiative to boost our team. In the same light, we have, for example, we are working on a displays, on a project of steel with displays to see how we can actually team up and mount a project that will have to do with how to recycle the garbage that we have collected so far through our that we used to collect during our cleanup campaigns. So those are some of the initiatives that we are conducting back here in Cameroon to see that actually the pollution of our environment, of our atmosphere should not be a challenge, should no longer be a challenge. And bio debate, as you can see, the concept of bio debate is something I came up with. Bio debate simply means bio is the nature, and debate means debating the nature, exchanging on the nature, conversing on the nature. Why conversing on the nature? Conversing on the nature should pick up to actually discuss the challenges that are evolving from our way of managing the nature, so much that we can actually refine our way of using, or actually reshape our behaviors towards the nature. That's what I talk about bio debate, and it's behind the concept bio debate that we had this project of debate, a debate and public speaking context. And it's still in that debate and public speaking context, we have the project of creating 50 climate clubs. So we have the project of creating 50 climate clubs in all the schools that will participate in this debate. All the schools are already selected, and when we participate, we equally train ambassadors, climate ambassadors, that will go in as presidents or as leaders of these climate clubs in secondary schools and universities that are already clearly selected, that are already selected as I speak. So those are some of the initiatives that we are conducting back here in Cameroon. And I believe that discussing with profound and refined leaders on board that you are, I am going to go back with possible solutions that will actually help me shape better my community as a community leader. Thank you for your keen attention. I'm open for any question of your choice. So, bless Bo.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you so much. We will be doing a Q&A right at the end after all the presentations, if that's all right. After which we are going to move on to the next presentation for today. Shay, would you want to take over to introduce the next presentation?
Yeah, sure. Who is the next person, Priyanka?
Eco. We'll be having Eco.
Is that okay, Echo? Okay, fine. That's a fantastic presentation. Okay, so the next topic that we are going to be looking at, the next project, it's about reforestation. And there's no better person here to talk about that except Eko Omobola. She's Nigerian. So she is the convener of the Urban Tree Reviver Team, UTRT, an alumni of Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta in Nigeria. Our passion for afforestation has gotten many recognition internationally. We are pleased to have you amidst your busy schedules. So Eko, I would like you to share your projects with the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. First, I would like to say it's a great privilege for me to be here amidst great minds and nature lovers to, share my little experience so far in conservation and forest restoration. Thank you very much, Sheyi. And I want to also commend the initiative and this event you have put together. Thank you so much for giving us this platform to share our story and experience so far. Thank you so much. I would like to start by saying, first, during the introduction, I was mentioned to be the founder of Urban Tree Revival Initiative. And in Urban Tree Revival Initiative, we are a team of nature lovers, and we take pride in, restoring the planet through tree planting activities, majorly in the urban areas, but not limited to the urban areas. We extend everywhere as long as we have the opportunity to plant trees. Okay, before I proceed, I would like to, establish the fact that in Nigeria, we have a history of, overexploitation of natural resources that has contributed drastically to, climate change, loss of biodiversity, decline in, forest, decline in soil nutrients, and also hunger, poverty, conflict, migration, as we would have. And rural communities, our rural communities in Nigeria, I can relate to Nigeria because this is my local community. Our rural community in Nigeria, they depend largely on timber and non-timber products derived from the forest for their daily survival. And this has contributed, and these people, they take from the forest without replacing this trees they are getting or product they are getting back, without the consciousness or the need. They think it's always available in the wild, so they always go back to take and to take. But guess what? When we take from the forest like that, when we exploit the forest beyond its capacity to naturally regenerate itself, we set in motion, environmental chains of environmental degradation, and especially the global climate change we are currently facing. And it is a known fact that the most vulnerable to the impact of climate change, basically, and environmental degradation, are the poor and developing countries, which Nigeria is one of. And this is what has inspired my interest, my passion in contributing to the solution locally by planting more and more trees. All I just know is that trees, the basic science we were taught, in school is that the trees absorb carbon and then they give us what? Fresh oxygen. So just this basic science made me realize that, trees, they sequester carbon. So if we can get to plant more and more of it, in our environment, we'll be doing a lot of, making a lot of impact in terms of climate mitigation. So this brings me to some of the things we do at Urban Tree Revival Initiative. I and my team, we have a dedicated team of nature lovers who would go to any extent to ensure that we restore the planet. And I'm glad that the theme of the Earth Day is for this year 2021 is Restore Our Earth. And there's no better time, it's a very timely topic, there's no better time to discuss this than now, when we are being confronted and threatened with an irreversible collapse of the ecosystem. We started Urban Tree by embarking on climate awareness and education. We go from school to schools, educating people. I love I was able to join in earlier from the first session where Sheyi Fumi, he mentioned, and then Sam Okore, they mentioned something about grassroots resources, localizing the problem of climate change and getting people to be aware. When you educate people, you empower them, you make them know their left from their right. So they be able to know, the danger that is available, that is, at stake if we keep treating the planet the way we have been doing it at all. So now we go from school to schools, educating people, students basically, and we introduce them to the solution. We don't just talk about the problem, we talk about the solution. And our core objective in urban tree is tree planting. We give seedlings from our nursery. We give seedlings which we plant and all that. And also we don't just stop there. We also embark on advocacy. And in the last section, the previous section, she mentioned a lot about advocacy and a lot of change that, but our advocacy is very relevant. So we, up to date, we've convened 3 major, campaigns. And we were inspired actually by Greta Thunberg of Friday for Future, and we've convened 3 major climate strikes, and the last one was focused on indigenous trees. This brings me to our passion in promoting indigenous trees. We've lost touch with our indigenous trees. We want to, as much as possible, imitate and emulate the developed countries as much as possible. But then we are neglecting our own culture, our own cultural values, of which indigenous trees is a major part of. A lot of these trees, in the wild, they are facing rapid decline, and many of them have been placed on the IUCN Red List as being vulnerable and endangered. So what do? We just need to keep planting more trees. As much as we want to plant new trees, existing trees in the forest need to be, conserved and preserved. These indigenous trees are so important because they help to conserve biodiversity. When you see a tree, a single tree, attached to this single tree are so many life forms, insects, birds, down to the microorganisms in the soil that depend on that particular tree. So when we lose that tree in the wild, we also lose other chains of other, life forms, which might be too, which the impact of which might not be good on the planet as the earth, So our advocacy is centered around indigenous trees. We want to bring life to them. We want to make people know more about them. We want to create awareness around indigenous trees. Not just tree planting is very good. All trees are, in fact, they contribute to carbon sequestration. They give us fresh oxygen. They give us shade, and they beautify our environment. They help to control flooding and all the other amazing benefits of trees. However, indigenous trees need to be, emphasized. And this brings me to our current project. Because of the time, I don't want to talk too much. Because of our time, this brings me to our most recent project, in which we are, planting indigenous trees for the purpose of restoration. And this we are doing in honor and loving memory of people we lost to COVID-19. The recent pandemic we have been faced with globally. And last year we saw, and we are still seeing actually, the impact of what might the health hazard of climate change might look like. It's just like I tell people that this is just the tip of the iceberg, that the worst is still coming. Okay, so I can say that COVID-19 is directly resultant of climate change, but we know that something leads to another, and we have COVID-19. So we want to use this moment to reflect on the fact that, climate change is real. We want to create awareness, more awareness. We want people to reflect on the people we have lost, and many more are still dying to COVID-19. So, and this also is what should, point us to the many more lives that we might lose to, other environmental hazards, in respect to climate change. So we are planting 70,000 trees, basically indigenous trees, in 14 locations, and we are kickstarting it very fast. We did a launch last month, and by next month in Port Harcourt, we'll be planting these trees, and we are currently liaising with the University of Port Harcourt and the Ministry of Environment Port Harcourt, also River State, to get this done. And we are not stopping at that. We are targeting major schools like ABU and some other locations, Kaduna, Abuja, and we are, taking it we are moving very fast, because guess what? We don't have time. 2030 is almost upon us. We are given a benchmark for 2030 this decade to take urgent and deliberate action. And I want to, commend Neda Malinga. I don't know if I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name right. You mentioned something, theory and practical. That this is a time to not just stop at the theory, but get our heads to practical things we can do practically to mitigate the impact of climate change. Theory, yes, we talk, we have seminars, we have webinars, we have a lot of things with respect to combating climate change. We want to create awareness as much as possible. We want to have climate education as possible. But guess what? We need to go out there. We need to go out there and get our hands dirty. In terms of conservation, in terms of if it is plastic recycling you're doing, your initiative is working with. If it's cleanups you can get done. We need to get work done. We need to take action, and this is where I have found fulfillment. Taking action locally in mitigating the impact of climate change, and by so doing, restoring the planet and making it sustainable, for the future generations. I have more to say, but because of time, I will, stop here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that's interesting from Eko Omobola. That's a fantastic one, and it is true that we are increasingly linked to the effect of climate change in our diverse community. Wherever you are in the world, the action you take, the trees you plant, the cleanups and all that, has a lot to do, to mitigate the effects of climate change. So that's a fantastic one from Eko. Thank you so much. The next one, the next speaker here is someone from Sierra Leone. Benson, hi Benson. Benson Cadell is a 27-year-old from Freetown, Sierra Leone. He has a bachelor's degree in natural resources management and master degree in water sanitation and hygiene from Njala University, Sierra Leone, and Imas Washchef Supply School in Bolivia, South America. As a young man who grew up in a rural village, he went through a lot of constraints with his family and the entire community as a whole. Some of the major problems he experienced included access to safe drinking water and proper sanitation systems. So decided to work on a simple pump technology that will solve water problem in deprived rural communities and train more young people as water technicians in their various communities. Using this approach today, he has helped over 50 deprived rural communities to access safe drinking water as a means of improving lives. In 2019, he consolidated his effort by formally founding Eco Water, a non-profit organization with goal of providing safe clean water for local community. So the floor is yours, Benson. Thank you.
Hello, thanks to everyone. Once more, my name is Benson Kanda from Sierra Leone, and we all know exactly the negative effect of climate change when it has to do with our daily life and the world and the planet as a whole. And my own mission and our own mission here is creating solutions to problems caused by climate change. And we all know, those of us that grew up in rural communities, we have our traditional water source where we normally walk a long distance to fetch water. and most of those sources has been covered by a tree canopy. When you have a tree canopy that is sharp, covering your water catchment, there is a guarantee that you have water throughout the season or for a long time. So because of the effect of these human activities like deforestation, people want to build houses, want to do stick mining, most of those water points have got dried. And as a result of the massive deforestation, there's a direct concentration of sunlight on the ground. And because of that also, the water table has drastically reduced, which result in many water points getting dry. Water from which the people get their water source is not dried. People have to walk a long distance to stream to fetch water, which of course is not really safe. Whenever there is a breakout here, when it has to do with waterborne disease, so many people in rural communities are greatly affected. Yeah, they have to lose a lot of lives, children and women. So having gone through this as a young person who grew up in the rural community, I was thinking to myself, how can we put an end to this? If not put an end to it, but what can we do to be able to minimize such things? One, to minimize the rate of children dying, women dying as a result of waterborne disease, the rate of children and school-going children walking a long distance to fetch water, which has to do with their studies because they always go to school late. They're always late for classes. They don't have time to study because they have to walk a long distance 3 times a day to make sure that there's water at home. So I was a small boy even when I was going to school. I was thinking that what can I do to put an end to this or to create an impact as a young person? So it has always been part of me. It has always been, part of me. Even when I went to the university, I was like trying to design some small technology innovation involving this thing, doing this thing over and over. So I was in year two doing my degree. So I decided to look out for some money to see how I can just do some demonstration. And I've been doing it for over 4 months. I never succeeded. I forgot about it. I continued my study. So I started thinking about where I came from and started seeing women and children doing the same working I used to do. So I said, no, I need to concentrate on this. So I decided to buy more materials and started doing it. So I decided to go to my village where I was born and did a demonstration. And special thanks to God when I did a demonstration, it was successful. The entire community was happy. I said, wow, now I've got the technology and the idea how to drill a well. Yeah, using a simple, innovative equipment. So what happened? We did a sample in my village, and the other thing again was the pump system. And we have this India Mark II, AfriDef, KDA, other imported pump systems. They are good, they are helping, but trust me, they are not really helping because if you have an India Mark II or AfriDef in your community, it will work for something like a month or two. When it breaks down, it becomes a problem. The community people cannot maintain it. And the part, when it breaks down, the part is very expensive. You have to call someone from Freetown, the capital city, or you have to go buy that part in the shop, and it's very expensive. The community people by themselves cannot afford to be buying this over and over when the problem occurs. And one of the things again that really pushed me to do this is if NGOs or government do not come to the aid of people to provide them boreholes, it's difficult for a community to just surround by themselves and say, okay, let's do a borehole because it costs something like $10,000 to do a borehole, including a pump, everything. So how can a community below 150 or even just below 300 can afford that money? That's a huge money here in Sierra Leone. And the water and sanitation policy says that priority are given to communities that are above 150 in population, 150 and above. Below that, they are not priority, according to the new policy by Water Resources in Sierra Leone. So those communities are my target. So we design the drilling equipment. We go to a community. We train them how to do a borehole by themselves using the self-supply method, because most of their water sources have got dried as a result of this massive deforestation. Because even if you tell them, hey, stop deforesting, the effect of this deforestation will hit you greatly that you will not understand. Some will say, okay, if we stop, where are we going to do our stone mining, coal mining, and timber mining? Because this is what we do to survive. Even though we are trying to do some reforestation, but yes, still we need this thing to survive. Now you don't have water, you're traveling, you're walking for a long distance. Now this is a solution. We create solution as a result of the cause of deforestation. So what happened? We trained them how to do a borehole by themselves using local material, locally built equipment. They can drill up to 100 meters a day. That does not require any electricity, little energy. And not only that, I also designed a pump system I named the L-cell pump system that is locally made. And these are pumps, when breaks, you don't need to go to freighter, you don't need to go to shop to buy parts. You can fix it by yourself without going to any shop to buy nothing. Because the only thing that wears out is the seal. And we use this halfback, the slippers we used, you can just have one at your place. After 3 months, it wear out, because when you're pumping, it wear out after 3 months. Then you look for something, a plastic or a slippers, shape it and fix it there and continue having water. So presently in Sierra Leone, we have done over 568 hand dug wells presently, dribble holes with pump systems. And we have over 178 trained technicians from all our communities in the 12 districts with no support from government. Yeah, because this is the idea of we young people. We always want money. If there's no money, no support from government or international organization, we can't move. But the time when young people need to concentrate or sit and wait on government and NGO to push, it will tend to wait longer while people are suffering when you have the solution. So we tend to use self-supply method, where we go to communities, we ask them, what are your problems? Water is our problem, we don't have water to drink. Okay, no problem. You don't have water to drink, we have the solution. Here is a pump system, here is a drilling system. We have to do it together. We direct you and you do it yourself, because we allow them to do it themselves to enhance sustainability and to enhance ownership. Because sometimes when you go to a community, just give them a well or a pump, say, this is a gift from organization A and B. They say, okay, no problem. But time goes on, they won't value it because their finance is not in it. There is no ownership because they never took part. All of these things we are done for them as a charity. So what we do, we give them the drilling system, we train them how to do it, they do it themselves, we direct them, we even learn how to construct a pump system, and they do it themselves. So when we are gone, they can always value that pump, they can always take care of that pump because they did it themselves. They put in their energy and they put in their money. Money in a sense, they provide food for the workers, they provide accommodation for us until the work is done. So today, with no boast, we have provided so many water pumps for so many deprived communities in Sierra Leone. And as a result of our impact intervention, organizations are now contacting Benson, looking at the cost at which we do our boreholes and the cost at which other companies do their boreholes. Everybody is now going in for our own pump system. Of course, if you can do a borehole as an organization at $10,000, that $10,000 can give you something like 6 boreholes with pump system, with completed ones in so many communities. So they tend to go in for a sustainable pump system where the people can maintain it and it's sustainable, it can be controlled and maintained by the people, rather than going in for heavy duty project that will only serve the people for a such amount of time, minimum amount of time. So presently, these are a project we are embarking on in saving lives for people living in deprived communities, giving them the opportunity to take up the responsibility in solving their own problem, using their own solution, not outside solution, but their home-based solution, so that at the end, they won't sit and wait for, this is the organization that did this pump for us, we have to wait for them so they can help solve the problem. No, this is not about who came to do it, but we did it, and we have to take up the responsibility and solve our own problem ourselves. So to cut it short, this is what we do as Eco Water Solution in Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benson, for the wonderful presentation. And before we move on to the final presentation for the day, I think I just got a message that Dr. Richard has had a question to ask Benson as he has to leave. So I think Dr. Richard can go first, and then we move to the next presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me the floor, and amazingly wonderful. Just quick questions. I think they will be also relevant to the next speaker. Unfortunately, I might not be able to listen. But starting off from Benson, thank you very much for that model. That is actually teaching people how to fish, not giving them fish. So mine is not necessarily a question to you, but a comment. If you can document that and share how you are doing it, working with the communities and building their capacity so they can take charge, that will be quite a very useful tool for advocacy for others to learn. To echo, thank you for your presentation and for the great work you do. My question to you is this, and I think I said this in the morning. which I know that you touched a little bit, but I just want to bring it back. Yes, planting trees is crucial. But how about you plant 5 million trees and 10 million are cut down? So my question is, what are the alternatives? Because people cut down trees for socio-economic reasons, to put food on the table, just to make sure they can prepare a meal for their kids, for lack of alternatives. So what are the alternatives you are providing to take that pressure off them, depending on forests rather than on others? Then to Willie, thank you for your presentation, which I listened very well, and I understand context, Cameroon, where I come from. But what I want to ask you is, yes, you are engaging youth and you are training them. Which low-intensive capital areas are you focusing on? Because the reality is you will not always have money, but you can still leverage on what doesn't cost money. And more importantly, you talk about funds. To what extent have you leveraged local community cooperatives, Njangis and things? I know you understand because I know where you come. We come from the same country. So you mentioned plastics. To what extent are you ensuring that we are not just talking about plastics in terms of advocacy, but also turning them to alternatives that can be used, like fashionable material bags instead of depending on plastic bags? I think this is just what I wanted to bring. But the last question for everyone is what I asked other people. If you were asked today to work with everyone, what one attribute will you need from everyone to work with? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me just, hold on the first question in terms of what are the alternatives to maybe if the community or the young people, everybody's embarking on deforestation, all the stuff, what are the alternatives? Like for me, of course, it's difficult to go to communities and tell people, hey, stop cutting down trees. Especially in the where I came from, this is one of the major source of living for those people living in this part of community, like coal mining. Some of them will do coal mining where a heat truck will come and buy over how many millions loans. So going to meet someone, hey, and these are family property. They can tell you, this bush belongs to, this is our land, and this belongs to my father. It passed on to me. So what right do you have to stop me from doing what I want to do with it? Yeah, this is what they will say. But look at it. Most of the people who are involved in this are young people, the youth. And young people, though, this is what we always do, because if you are involved in coal mining, all this stuff throughout your life, when you're old, there will come a time you won't have the energy to do what you are doing now, especially when you are young. So you have to do something like learning a skill that will be able to support you. When that time comes, when you are old, you still be able to support yourself. So we do. When we go to a community, we look for all these young people. Hey, we call them, if they are 20 or 50 number, tell me exactly what are the things or the activities you are involved in this community. Some will say, I'm a fisherman, I do timber cutting, timber mining, and I do coal mining, stone mining. I say, okay, how much do you derive from that daily or per month? Some will say, okay, I derive 300,000 if I'm able to do a coal mining something like a week. I can have something like 300,000. That's you spend over 3 or 4 weeks before that is done. Okay. These are simple innovative ideas, because what we do sometimes, if you go on my Facebook page, Ben Sintana, you can see that I advocate. I visit communities on my own, visit hard to reach communities, get meeting with people, take a picture of their problems, make a video of them stating their problems. I post it on Facebook and I advocate on their behalf. And I always have fun from individuals. People will say, okay, Benson, I want to support this particular community because the problem I'm seeing is that they need their help, urgent help. So what I do, I go to them. I'm going to train you. I'm going to train you how to be a wash technician and how to be an ambassador and how to be an entrepreneur as well. Reason being, if we train them, we're going to give them the equipment. The equipment is this. They are not going to do the work free for another community. The community will come together to give them whatever amount they have been earning from coal mining. That's why the entire community will come together to give this group, so that the group will leave their own village to go to that village and do a borehole for them with a pump. So by so doing, they keep traveling from one village to another. So they still earning the same money they have been earning from stone mining. And this time around is very simple. They are learning and they are earning money and the respect is there. So that alone drives their attention from deforestation or timber mining, all this stuff, but they are learning skill and they are providing water for their community, and respect have increased and they are not important Whenever there's a breakdown, they call, hey, Musa, please come to my village. Oh, this society I've traveled. I don't think I can. Musa will just go there. He's not going to buy anything, fix a problem. Respect have increased. So this is one of the way we try to drive the attention from all anything that has to do with deforestation, anything that has to do with a negative effect on the community, so they can be useful and be entrepreneurial in their entire villages, where they can be wash ambassadors. That's one thing. Like for the plastic, of course, it's difficult for us to see this water plastic in rural communities because they don't have money to buy water plastics to drink. When you go to the urban cities, when you look around, you see so many water plastic around the cities, all this stuff. But in rural communities, it's difficult. So the little they have, they use slippers or they use something like 1 dozen slippers and plastic. They score it in the form of a seal, which can be used on the piston, extract water from the well. So these are just some of the little ideas we use to bring youth from being involved in deforestation, being involved in an activity that will later serve as a negative effect on the community, to be useful and be more important in the community and serve as an entrepreneur in their particular district. So that's how we are reaching out to so
Thank you,
many communities.
Benson. Thank you, thank you. Sorry, we've got the time, so we needed to just, these questions other panelists will answer, but thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome.
Hopefully you can also still share more of your views in the chat. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Benson. That was so inspiring and so incredible. And I hope that answered Dr. Richard's question. I know Dr. Richard also directed the question to Iko and Billy. But Dr. Richard, if it's all right, we would like to do the final presentation and then based on time have Iko and Billy also share their thoughts on the question you've asked. It's okay. So with that, we will just move on to the last presentation of the day. And for the last presentation of the day, we have a group of very young students from India who are going to be joining us. We are joined by the Elvis Blue Champions, who are a passionate group of students working towards leading change with their Blue Warriors Club, a youth-based circle focusing to lead and implement awareness and action programs in school. The Blue Champions include 5 young students, Ved Sanyal, Heem Desai, Hazik Kazi, Arav Bhansali, and Priyasi Desai. So I hand over the floor to them. I think they have a short presentation for us. So they can just share the screen and begin.
Hello everyone. Elvis Blue Champions is a student-led movement in schools that will inspire the youth to raise awareness and drive action to fight for our oceans and the environment.
So, like Bianca mentioned earlier, we're 5 students. I'm Ved, and I believe that small actions are of the greatest value to fighting the climate change.
Hello, I'm here, a student from Fountainhead School, Surat. I want to bring a real change in the environment by coming up with solutions for plastic pollution and the other topics connecting it.
Hello everyone, I'm Prayasi and I study in Fountainhead School, Gujarat. I yearn to be a change maker and pursue a cleaner and sustainable future for the planet Earth.
Hi, my name is Hazik Kazi. I'm the co-founder of the Everest Foundation. So I'm passionate about combating the plastic waste crisis. I also are really interested in math, science, and arts.
Hello everyone, I am Arav Bhansali. I study in Fountainhead School, Surat. So one thing excites me is finding solutions to problems which cause damage to our environment and how can we protect our environment.
So we are from the Everest Foundation. where we've been launched in 2019, and we are dedicated to bringing a generational change in the way the youth of today deals with plastic.
So Blue Circle was basically a 3 month course where we covered various aspects of the plastic crisis, and each of the sessions had different factors of the plastic crisis. We also had interactions with experts such as Dr. Ash, Anna, and many more people, and we were mentored by Dr. Ash throughout the whole process. It was also very interactive, and it was largely based on discussions and open sharing of opinions. So we followed the Harkness method, where we had a nice discussions about different topics in each session. Talking about the individual projects, we concluded our Blue Circle program with the Solvers Arena, which we all were preparing by doing different projects. So we had taken up in different fields. One took the science and innovation, the other took the plastic and biodiversity, and there were a lot many more projects.
Okay, so the Blue Warriors Club is an 8-hour course or an 8-hour course that is held in schools. And it's for a wide range of students. While the topics are the same, the courses will be adjusted to the age of the particular group. And similar to the Blue Circle Club, it will be discussion based and it will have a lot of experts. Uh, However, the difference in this is that we just don't want to educate them, while yes, education is key. Like many of the others have talked about, that we need to make sure that everybody knows what the problem really is, because the solution is in the problem. But also, the course focuses on having a second phase, which we'll be talking about later, but that's essentially work project in each locality and actually implement that on ground.
One of mine and Priyasi's project is Emblems of the Earth, where we conducted workshops to educate our fellow schoolmates about plastic pollution and change making within our school.
As I talked about the Solvers Arena that took place at the end of the Blue Circle, one of the projects that I did along with my fellow mate Meenakshi, we had a project called Eco Education, where we had innovations, eco breaks, campaigning, and workshops.
So the thing about the Blue Circle is that we didn't want to stop it at just the education of um, like education of the students there, right? So we wanted to, like, the whole thing was to create a chain reaction so that the people who attended the Blue Circle will take it to their own communities, and so on and so forth. So some of the students from Fountainhead School Surat and this International School Pune came together and created the Blue Warriors Club in their schools. So the Blue Warriors Club is kind of like a descendant of the Blue Circle, having a greater class size um, and more activity oriented. So in Fountainhead School, led by Arav, Priyasi, and Here, they have completed 8 sessions and have begun a group project. And this group project will have calls every month to see their progress, and it'll just work towards creating a better locality for themselves. And for Indus International School Pune, led by myself and Ved Sanyal, we are at the 6th session, and our group project begins roughly in June. Our students are also working on a personal assignment, and also as well. So this is related to any of the topics that we have covered. So yeah. So more about the highlights in this International School Pune. Yeah, Wade, can you take it forward?
Okay. So in the international, we originally approached our principal and they really liked the idea. And that's why we went ahead and implemented our course. Um, and the response from the students was really good. Almost 20, more than 20 students registered, and we've been having a lot of interactive sessions in school, and there's been a lot of opinion sharing. And even Isaac and I have learned a lot from some of our experts. Isaac, can you talk about that more?
Yeah, so we've called many experts, including um, Christina Giabetti and Mr. Dipali, and they have talked about various topics that they have an expertise in, including role of policymaking and also the role of plastic in their lifestyle. So the students had lots of exposure towards towards experts, and they were able to interact and know more about the things that they are interested in. So the students it was one of the best sessions where we had some of the experts come in.
Yes, finally we have engagement. So like I said earlier, we had a lot of discussions, and some of the students were so interested that they took the same topics outside of just the 1 hour course. And we've been having countless discussions on informal platforms where a lot of new opinions and new conclusions have come up.
Some of the highlights for Fountainhead School is our target audience was from grade 5 to 9, and we rolled out form. Most of our participants are from grade 5. We even brought in experts in our phase 1 sessions, and the students really enjoyed those sessions. The engagement that we had was the students from our club are really the ones who like activities and discussion. So we connected every theories to activities so that the students stay engaged and they don't feel bored. In the phase 2, so in the phase session 1, session 7 of phase 1, we discussed our personal goals for the environment, and in our session 8 for the phase 1, we created like a complete plan of action by dividing activities for every month, which we will work together as a club.
Okay, so you look at two schools, and this is where we want to show you how the course can be diversified based on two student sets that are vastly different. The ones in my school here were older slightly, and that's like much more interactive and had much deeper thoughts. Whereas the other group like activities more, and that's how we show that while the topics are the same, different people are appealing or are attracted in different ways. And that's very important to our course because we want to have a widespread impact. So this is what some of our students have to say about the course.
Yeah.
So this is some thoughts from our students that we took after about half the course was over. And as you can see, a lot of them really liked the courses and thought that there was something new, something that hadn't pretended earlier. And this is a summary of Fountainhead sessions. And here you can see how, because we're also the same age as our attendees, it's easy to take informal feedback from them and therefore improve our course. And that's why it's really important to have a similar age because that really improves your connect and has a larger impact. So that is the end of our presentation. We are now open to any questions. Should you have any?
Thank you so much, Ved, Priyasi, Arav, Hasik, and Heer. As we are a little over time for as per the schedule, if there's any questions, please do let us know in the chat and maybe we can direct it. If there's any question somebody wants to ask right now, we can maybe take a minute to answer it. Otherwise, we can move towards concluding today's day one of the session. Fola and Shay, do you want to conclude today's session? I'll hand it over to you.
I think Fola should. Fola, I will allow Fola to talk, please. Yeah.
Fola, you're not audible. I think she has an issue with the internet. Do you want to take over?
Okay. I think it's a fantastic one by the group, and really impressed seeing what young people are doing there in India. The Blue Circle, your model to captivate young people, it's very sensitive, and I think it's a very passionate, work that you're really doing there, to manage young people, to talk to them in the language they understand, the means, there's a way you talk to the young people about climate change and the way you talk to the older generation. And then I think it's even more difficult to talk climate change to young people than the older generation. So what you're doing there in India is a fantastic one. To be honest, I'm really impressed, because what Future Saver is doing here in Nigeria is basically climate education, and then we try to communicate with these young people at a very in a language that they understand. And I believe by tomorrow we are also going to be sharing some of our stories here from Nigeria, and I believe a lot of people can learn from that as well. So thank you. Guys, kudos to you. Don't get tired. Keep working. Keep going. The sky is the limit for you guys, obviously.
Thanks a lot, sir.
So with that, I think we come to the end of day one of Earth Day Webinar 2021. Thank you so much to everyone for joining in. I think it has been nothing short of incredible, inspiring, and just absolutely enriching. And we are not done yet. We have day two tomorrow, which is going to be equally exciting and equally engaging and equally enriching. So we want all of you to join us tomorrow as well. A big thank you to all the speakers who make their time from their very busy schedule. It's Earth Day, I know, so everyone's very packed usually, but thank you for making the time, joining in and having these conversations, because they matter so much. And a big thank you to all the participants who were there and listened in and shared their thoughts and discussions in the chat. And we hope to see all of you tomorrow. Paula and Shay, if you have anything to conclude with, and we can end the session.
Oh, really? Okay, fine. Okay, for tomorrow. Good. So, yeah. So you can connect with us on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, every of our partners. We are live in all these, social media platforms. So tomorrow is officially Earth Day, of course. So it's even going to be more exciting tomorrow. So I appreciate all our panelists, Earth Day Chairman for standing by us, Dr. Richard, Dr. Norman, Dr. Ash, all of them. We say thank you for this humble lead to our call. We really appreciate. And thanks to the moderators. Thanks to my co-moderators. Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you, Fola. You guys are fantastic. We love you all. And then we believe that tomorrow will be better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we hope to connect with you all. Please get in touch with us if anything there is that you all want to get in touch with us for. Thank you so much for joining, and see you all tomorrow.